Good morning, dear ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to EUROBAK Executive Get Together. This is our regular event that a couple of years ago, Coca-Cola has renewed in the making. And we are really grateful this morning to host you. And also we are grateful to Coca-Cola for being our partner, being our sponsor of today's event. On behalf of EUROBAK, this is my great pleasure to welcome you to this event that is dedicated to the subject of investing in Kazakhstan, economic climate and corporate impact. We are honored to gather here at the Intercontinental Hotel Almaty, bringing together top executives and through leaders to explore. We'll have the opportunity to explore the dynamics investment landscape of Kazakhstan and discuss the corporate impact shaping our future. And before I begin, I should do the health and safety. What happens in case of the event that is unlikely to happen? You need to follow the exit signs. And I hope that my team is actually informed where to take you. But first and foremost, don't panic. This is the most safe place in Almaty, built with standards and quality, so we should be all safe. Yes, Lukasz is not happy with this conversation, but we have to do this. Safety is first. Today, yeah, of course you would. But as we are here, I should say that, right? One of the things. Yes. And today we are also pleased to welcome two distinguished EUROBAK board members. Please welcome Mr. Gordon Haskins, Deputy Chairman of EUROBAK Board. And also, I still am learning how to pronounce the right name of the bank, CEO of ADCB Islamic Bank. Please welcome Gordon. And we also, we have three board members. Yes, because he added himself like a last minute and my text is not updated. And another board member, Hussein Ozhan, who just joined us this year. Hussein is Managing Director for Central Asia and Mongolia, EBRD Kazakhstan, who will be presenting through this agenda today. And Ertan Kurt, General Manager of FS Kazakhstan. Thank you very much, dear board members. This adds a very great value to the meetings when you are here. And yes, Gordon was thinking that he's elected only because he's pretty. But we actually like the expertise and what he adds to the board over the years.
Thank you for that reassurance, Julie.
We are really grateful to have the board, strong board, because without board guidance, it's very difficult to have a successful association. And we strongly believe we are one of the strongest associations that are here in Kazakhstan. At least I make that statement proper. Anyways, I'd like to express our sincere gratitude to a valued partner, as I mentioned, Coca-Cola İçecek Kazakhstan, for supporting today's event and actually initiating, organizing this event and proposing the topic. Over the course of our session, we will hear from speakers who will share their insights on regional economic trends, corporate responsibility, and the tangible impact of investment initiatives. Following the presentations, we encourage you to take an active part in our questions and answer sessions. We encourage you to ask questions, share your reflections, because they are very important for contribution to today's discussion. Let us make this morning productive, inspiring, and insightful. Now, I'm pleased to pass the word to a new addition to Kazakhstan community, Veli Dincheli, new General Manager of Coca-Cola İçecek Kazakhstan, for his welcoming remarks. Please.
Thank you. Thank you, Julie. So, good morning. My name is Veli Dinçer. I assumed the role of General Manager of Kazakhstan CCI, Coca-Cola, almost 1.5 months ago. Prior to that, I was working in FS Georgia, which is our sister company in the R holding group. Actually, this is a very special moment for me to join CCI Coca-Cola Kazakhstan organization as we are celebrating the 30 years anniversary, which is very important for us because it's showing that our long-term commitment to society and also Kazakhstan market as an investor. At CCI, we firmly believe and we see essential that it's not only the business results, it's also about that how we are contributing to society, the community, and also the state with the various aspects as well. Today, you will see and hear our latest socioeconomic report, which is quite important for us. I hope you will see the really insightful aspect of the report, and hope you will also get some enjoyment after the report as well. Once again, thank you very much for coming here, and I hope it will be a very good meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much and welcome once again. We hope we'll have productive and inspiring years ahead under your leadership because, as I mentioned, Coca-Cola has been a really great addition and a great partner for EUROBAK over the years. We sincerely appreciate your leadership and commitment, and we wish you every success in your new position, and we look forward to elaborating on that cooperation. Let's move now to the agenda. You can see on the screen that we have our speakers in. This is my great honor and a pleasure to welcome Mr. Hussein Ozhan. As I mentioned, Hussein is Managing Director for Central Asia and Mongolia, EBRD Kazakhstan, covering a huge area. And how long have you been in Kazakhstan already?
Close to 4 years.
Almost 4 years. And yes, and EBRD has been one of the founding members of EUROBAK 25 years back. And we are really grateful to have EBRD on board and supporting EUROBAK all through the 25 years. Please, Hussein.
Thank you very much, Julie. It's an honor and pleasure for me. Yes, there you go. Let me get comfortable first because it's going to be a little bit. So thank you very much, Julie, and a warm welcome to Veli as well to Kazakhstan. You will definitely enjoy your time here, and the city, particularly Almaty, will grow on you. That was exactly how we felt when we first came in 2021 in August. So as Julie said, I was waiting until this year to become a board member of EUROBAK, just in the sense that we want to also increase regional cooperation. Not only but the European Association organizations across the region is also very important, and we are seeing very good traction and results as well. And EUROBAK definitely, as the celebrating its 25th year, is taking the lead on gathering the others under this extended regional agenda as well. So today, I'm going to give you a presentation which will look at two main points. First of all, given the economic conditions and the geopolitics of the world, we want to see how the region, with a focus on Kazakhstan, is affected by this. What is the outlook? What is the current trends? So we tried to put together with our staff on the ground and in London, as part of our Regional Economic Prospects Report, which comes out 3 times a year with some forecasts as well. So, and then we'll go through the trends, economic activities, the impacts. In the second part of my presentation, I will focus on the main topics, particularly in Kazakhstan, what EBRD as EBRD we're working on these days. What are the main trends also in terms of our both investments as well as the policy engagement. Given that we don't have too much time, I will try to run through all of this. Does this work? Should I? There you go. It's working. All right. So let us begin. Let me get mine. Okay. Global policy uncertainty. These are the two data points that you can see with time. both on the trade policy side as well as on the economic policy side, you can see significant spikes. On the trade policy, obviously that spike is US, particularly with the addition and the introduction of the tariffs. And you can also see both increase in US, but particularly Germany as well. This is on the back of, as you know, earlier this year, Germany decided to increase their borrowing capacity. So they will, increase the borrowing capacity. They're changing their approach to entire macroeconomics, etc. And you can also see throughout the time China as well. So what this basically says is that there is in 2025 unknowns surrounding the increasing in tariffs in the US imports and reciprocal measures by the US trade partners, and increased uncertainty about the rules that have a significant detrimental effect on trade, investment, and production. Okay, next slide. Maybe since I cannot do it here, now I can. Okay. Now, in this slide, you can see the direct impact of the increased US tariffs on Central Asian countries, well, on all of the EBRD countries where we operate and their competitive countries as well. So here you can see that the Central Asia, with the increased tariffs, is not going to, and particularly Kazakhstan, it's actually the second red arrow at the bottom, is not going to be impacted as much. So the 25% tariffs on steel, aluminum, and cars, and 125% tariff increase for China, and 10% increase in tariffs for all other economies. This is what has been, what has been introduced. And on 2nd of April, the US announced reciprocal tariffs on 60 economies that was set to go into effect on the 9th of April. So the rates latter corresponded the half of the US trade deficit with countries divided by the country's exports to the US. That's the basic thing, the basic logic that they indicated. Of course, certain exemptions were made, including energy products. So therefore, the effective tariffs for Kazakhstan would not significantly increase. But these new tariffs would push the expected effective US import tariff to more than 10.5% across all of the regions that we as EBRD operate. This number was 1.8 in 2024. So this is going to have a significant impact on the overall economy. So again, as I'd like to indicate that given the low share of US trade with Central Asian countries, the impact is going to be less. Now, here you can also see China is going to be impacted because of the trade wars and increased tariffs, etc. We're expecting Chinese economy to slow down a little bit. And EBRD regions, particularly in Central Asia and Mongolia region, Mongolia has two neighbors, so they, particularly export significant amount of their exports to China. But Kazakhstan also has about 20% of its total exports in terms of goods to China. And majority of this export basket includes fuel and critical raw minerals. So a slowdown in Chinese growth might decrease the external demand and therefore lead to lower export volume of Kazakhstan and others as well. So we will see in the next slide what are the impacts on the overall GDP levels. We can look at it. Now, this is Central Asia as a whole. So these are the EBRD regions overall and where we operate as European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. So if you look at Central Asia, overall growth figures, Central Asia leads the way. It's the highest growth region in our countries that we operate in. And despite the fact that it is quite high, but given the certain uncertainties, we're expecting the overall growth to reduce slightly. Okay, there you go. So let's focus on the region, and particularly let's look at Kazakhstan. So the diamond figure is the September 24 forecast that we have. So 23 and 24 is the realized growth. And then you can see that we are going to reduce, and certain reduction we will see in terms of the expectations, growth expectations. So when we look at the overall 24 data, the incomes grew on the back of the real wage increases, continued strong inflow of remittances, not for Kazakhstan, but for other countries, it's important. Strong credit growth, this is across the board, and particular consumer loans, this is particularly Kazakhstan, and favorable tourist seasons in several countries boosted the service sectors. So Kazakh economy's 2024 growth was driven by particularly the domestic demand. You can see that on the production side, agriculture, construction, trade, transport recorded the highest growth rates, while the mining and quarrying sector slightly declined due to the oil output reduction under the OPEC Plus agreement. So when taken into account the sizes of the sectors of these within the GDP of Kazakhstan, domestic trade was the strongest driver of growth. And this reflects the strong household consumption in Kazakhstan. I would like also for you to have a look at the unemployment rate. Unemployment rate is coming down and the average nominal monthly wages is increasing. So from a company perspective, your cost, variable cost, particularly on the wage side, is in a trend of increase. So Kazakhstan shows strong growth in 25 so far as well. So we see a very strong increase in the economic activity in the first quarter of 2025. You can see that spike also. This is largely on the back of the industry, which represents about a quarter of the overall economic activity, overall GDP in the country. So manufacturing growth likely remained positive throughout the 25. And then mining sector is going to also drive the industrial and overall GDP in 2025. You can see that transport and warehousing recorded another 21%. It was over 50% last year in terms of the investments, but the sector overall is small. So that's why the actual impact on GDP is relatively smaller. Another important trend is the strong growth in domestic trade, and this is expected to continue as well. So let's look at the energy sector now, which continues to account for half of the total goods exports revenue. So this is basically the oil and basically the oil exports, which is half of Kazakhstan's export. So this is, you can see the slight increase, and this is on the back of the expanded Tengiz oil field in January. And according to the expansion plans, the production volume will be gradually increasing by the mid-year. But there's also the OPEC Plus agreement. So it's going to be, we need to be a bit cautious. But the most important part here, uncertainties and trade is going to impact the price of oil. As you can see, that's the red dotted line that comes down. It already came down, the Brent prices, the Brent oil and WTO as well. WTO this morning was 62, I think. And the Brent came down from 75 to 65. And as a country which has 50% of its exports in oil, Kazakhstan is expected to be impacted by this. I think this is going to be one of the main impacts. And we will see the impact of this on the fiscal balance. Fiscal balance is how much you spend, what's your revenues. So we'll look at that in the next slides. Let me see if I missed anything or not. Okay, can we? Yes, intermediated trade. So it is still high across the region. This is particularly after the war and the sanctions introduction. Intermediated trade has increased significantly across the region, including Kazakhstan as well. But it has now reached to a certain level, which is not increasing and which is not impacting the GDP as a big booster anymore. Next one. So oil and gas sector remains dominant in terms of the FDI, foreign direct investment destination. Kazakhstan received more than 17 billion gross FDI in 24. This is much less than what it received in 2023. It was recorded as 28 billion. This volatility, as you can see also, is not surprising given the majority of investments still flow into mining sectors. So it's not continuous, but ad hoc. This is a very interesting one. Particularly Kazakhstan, it's the middle graph at the bottom row. These countries are called connector countries. They are the countries where they pursue a multi-vector foreign policy, like Kazakhstan. And you can see the trends of investments that comes from Western Bloc, from US, Eastern Bloc, and from the rest of the world and Europe. So you can see the multi-vector foreign policy in effect in terms of the actual investments as well. So here, definitely Kazakhstan is clearly comes out as the leader from Central Asia, together with Uzbekistan, not much difference. But here, the actual leader definitely is the United Arab Emirates, with, as you can see, more than 1,500 number of inflow initiatives on FDI. There you go. So inflation accelerated in many countries in the region. So you can clearly see the trend came down, but when you look at the last 6 months, 9 months, inflation is going up again. Of course, uncertainty, increased consumption, increased demand, domestic demand is increasing pushing the inflation up, obviously. And of course, central banks are there, left with the responsibility to act on it. And you can see the rate hikes across Central Asia and rate hikes, particularly in Kazakhstan. This is very important for not only the banking sectors like us, but the real sector as well. Your cost of borrowing in tenge terms will continue to be high. And this is my personal opinion. I don't think we're going to be able to see low or very low interest rates in the next decade. I think this trend is going to continue, and we're going to learn how to live with higher interest rates. And that's why investments, the actual investments that you are planning as companies, needs to take this into account quite significantly. So, as I said, what are the reasons for increased inflation? In this case, you can see the red line, which is the most important one, and that's the services. So overall, food and non-food production inflation subsided. So that's not the real reason. But the real reason is the demand side driven nature of inflationary pressures and driven by the procyclical fiscal stimulus on consumer demand. Increased consumer demand, and particularly on the services sectors, are the key for increased inflation. And on the right-hand side, you can see that overall Central Asia is going to have an impact on the nominal wages. This is partly driven by inflation, but partly also driven by their move along the development cycle. Next one. There you go. Currency fluctuations. The currency fluctuation since mid-24 has been on the back of the domestic factors, fiscal policy, quite loose fiscal policy, external factors, and ruble volatility was also important here, and decline in oil prices and the global uncertainty. The National Bank conducts mirroring operations to minimize the impact on the currency, but you can see the currency movements here, and I think this trend with the high inflation is expected to continue. So, but here, the important part is the transfers from the national fund. It has been increased, and I think given the lower oil prices, I think these transfers, increased level of transfers will continue. So fiscal and external balances will come under pressure. This is exactly what I wanted to show you. On the left-hand side, you can see the fiscal balance as a percentage of the GDP. This is basically the budgeting balance. So the difference between your revenues and your expenditures, how much you spend. On Kazakhstan, look at 25 expectations. It is expected that 3%, up to 3%, even more, of a fiscal balance or fiscal deficit is expected this year. This is on the back of reduced revenues as well as increased expenditures. FDI is, of course, it's also a revenue generating, but FDI usually is on the investment side. This is more on the expenditure side. This is the tax revenues mainly. That's why there is a new tax code now being in the making. And that's why we're going to see most likely an increase in not direct, but indirect taxes to be able to ensure short-term also revenue increase. I'm talking about VAT. Low public debt and large international reserves cushion against the external shocks. As you can see, particularly in Kazakhstan, the level of reserves is quite okay. And then when you also look at the public debt figures as well on the left-hand side, Kazakhstan is in a quite comfortable position with around 30% debt, government debt to GDP levels. And these levels, well, compared to the European countries, is a dream. I don't think they have ever seen these numbers, in the past, 50 years, post-war. Now, that was the last slide on the economic side. Let me come to the second part of my, if I can manage. There you go. So the selected priority areas of EBRD engagement, particularly in Kazakhstan. So let's start with the National Infrastructure Investment Program. This is also one of the reasons why the expenditures are going to increase in Kazakhstan. So the Kazakh government launched a major initiative on which encompasses 204 projects in the big scheme, but a less number of projects have been selected and approved by the Majlis and the Senate later on last year, at the end of last year. And this is going to have significant investments in the energy, transport, water supply, and digital infrastructure. And this will require significant financing across the board. So sovereign financing, government financing, project financing, they will need IFIs financing, they will need capital market development, capital market financing, they will need PPPs, and so which will require further engagement and policy reform on the PPP side, on the simplification of the regulatory area side, and also on the commercialization of infrastructure. Here, one of the biggest problems is that the tariffs across the board have been kept the same, even pre-COVID period. So for the past 10 years, the real tariffs actually more or less the same. And significant investments are needed. If you don't have the tariffs, higher tariffs, that the people who uses those infrastructure needs to pay for it, basically. If you don't pay for it, and if you keep on subsidizing it, you will need to finance it, subsidize it from somewhere. And that is usually the, pension fund or the oil fund. But oil fund and the sovereign wealth fund is created for the future, not for today. So this is the underlying some of the logic on that one. So we're working on the national infrastructure program with the government. Second one is the Trans-Caspian Transit Route, or the Trans-Caspian Transit Corridor, or the Middle Corridor, however, whichever you wish to call it. This is basically the alternative corridor and the relevant investments, both on the hard investment side as well as the soft investment side, meaning increased digitalization, increased border crossing measures, etc. And the hard investment, meaning railway infrastructure, road infrastructure, logistical warehousing infrastructure, logistics infrastructure, etc. So we're working with the government on addressing all of these obstacles on the connectivity side going forward. So this is the second trend, or the second selected priority area. Next one, banking law reform. This, I think you have joined last week or 10 days ago, the new draft law presentation by the regulators. I hope it addresses some of the issues, but we're working very closely with the financial regulators on drafting the new banking law and working on the changes that is required on the secondary legislation, on the other relevant laws as well. Dentons is also taking the lead on this one, working together with the regulator. Hopefully, a very ambitious target of approving it by the end of summer. So this is going to be quite important to have also additional investments, additional foreign investors coming into the country, as well as fixing some of the legacy issues, as well as embracing the new trends like digitalization, digital currencies, crypto, etc. Next one, I think, is going to be the final one. Oh no, two more. Can we go to the next one, please? There you go. So another important work that we do in Kazakhstan is the SME support and the transformation of Damu. As you can see, some of the Damu financings or the subsidies provided by Damu is going to be scaled back. But this doesn't mean that the support to the economy or to the SMEs are going to change. It's just going to become more sustainable, embracing other non-market distorting measures. So we work very closely with financial institutions. We work very closely with Bayterek and Bayterek companies, particularly Damu. We work very closely with the financial regulators to increase financing to particularly MSMEs, to women-owned and operated businesses, to youth-operated businesses, and for green projects. Green projects doesn't necessarily mean renewable projects. Green projects across the board, increasing resource efficiency, including climate resilience, including efficiency measures across the board. So this is the penultimate topic that I wanted to raise, and the transformation policy engagement that we have with the government. And the final one is the energy transition. And this is going to be a very important one. While it has been gradually ramping up, Kazakhstan needs to scale the renewable energy sources, particularly in electricity generation, to meet the target of 15%. And we've been supporting Kazakhstan through assistance with the Ministry of Energy on identifying the tender mechanisms for the renewables, as well as supporting private sector investors on the large-scale renewable projects, and investing in the projects that will help the rollout of the renewables, meaning energy infrastructure like KIGOC on the transmission lines, as well as distribution networks, etc. And finally, one more point here. We're working on right now. We're working on with the relevant authorities, Ministry of Ecology, Energy, and National Economy, on establishing a just energy transition platform, or a certain platform structure that will help the transition process. Maybe I have one more slide. Oh, critical raw materials, of course. This is going to be an important one, as Kazakhstan is the largest producer of critical raw materials, and the demand in the world is going to be increasing, particularly as part of the EU's Global Gateway strategy. We're working very closely with the relevant authorities. Ministry of Industry and Construction is taking the lead on this one, with geological survey of identifying, digitalizing the existing data to be able to have the maximum output and maximum foreign foreign direct investment coming into the country. And we also have a junior mining program, which we introduced last year, that we invest in the junior miners as well. Even sometimes can take equity partnership on this one. A graphite investment that we've done last year was an important one. And we will continue to work. For example, right now we're working on copper, titanium, gold, and others as well. So, and each and every project, we try to ensure that the highest environmental standards are applied. So that would be one of our value-added points as well. And without further ado, I'll stop here. I'm already too long, but thank you very much for listening. And then maybe at the end, if there are any time left, we can have questions. So I will hand over to you, Julie. Thank you.
Thank you, Hussein. And this is a very interesting and important presentation. This is exactly the topics we set up this executive get-togethers for. So we are really grateful for you to be here with us this morning and presenting. And now I'm delighted to invite our next speaker, Viktor Kovalenko, partner and climate change and sustainability services leader at EY Caucasus and Central Asia. Today, Viktor will present the social economic impact statement prepared by the Coca-Cola system, highlighting the important contributions the system is making towards Kazakhstan development. We strongly believe that this is an important document, and we are grateful to Coca-Cola for the initiative. So, Viktor, the floor is yours, and afterwards we'll be passing the word to Alima.
Thank you very much, Yulia. So we will be talking from the table, right? Not going there. Yeah, okay, that's good, that's good. So we'll be talking in English. For some reason, the presentation was in Russian, but I hope that it will be clear for you when I will be explaining what does it mean. So, clicker, can I ask for it, please? Thank you. Yeah. Слишком громко. Is it better? Yeah, okay. So, Hussein, you did like that, right?
Yes.
I think you are more successful than me.
We
Probably.
have team who can help you, Viktor, if it doesn't work.
Okay,
Yeah.
next slide. Yeah, that does work. So, the matter about this great study, which has been done by the Coca-Cola system with our support, is about what is named the total socioeconomic contribution of a company into economy of a country. So the period which this study covered was 10 years, from 2013 to 2023. And the key aim was to investigate, analyze, calculate, and review and understand how the Coca-Cola system, which includes the Coca-Cola Almaty bottler, so bottling company, and Coca-Cola Kazakhstan, how this system does impact the economy of Kazakhstan and its social development, and also environmental matters were in that study. But today I will focus more on socioeconomic part. So what does this concept of total socioeconomic impact means? I will explain moving 2 slides further, please. Next. You're so kind. Thank you. So each large company doesn't work in economy alone. So each large company usually creates some kind of what could be named as ecosystem with all the suppliers, with all their partners, in the Coca-Cola system's case, also distributors, retail stores, etc., etc. So kind of ecosystem of various partners and companies which does work together with this company. And what company does itself in the economy is really impacting and contributing by a lot of what we call weights outside of this company. And by the methodology, what is named total socioeconomic impact is usually being divided by 4 key components. So how the company is contributing to GDP, how the company is contributing to employment of people in the country, to labor income of people who are working, and to tax collection of the government. And these are four major KPIs which have been calculated here. What is the kind of very important thing to consider here is that each of these components, because of this ecosystem, is being divided by a couple of effects. So what company does itself by the Coca-Cola system in this case is usually named as a direct effect. So for example, people who do work in the Coca-Cola issue check, so in the bottling company, is its direct contribution to employment. Number of employers in this company means its direct contribution to employment. But it is not full effect of how the company influences employment in Kazakhstan. Why? Because there are such things as indirect impact and induced impact. So as I said, there is a kind of ecosystem. So Coca-Cola system purchases something, different services, different products, different components to produce its product here. And because of that, each and every supplier of something to the Coca-Cola system also has some number of employees which do exist because of these purchases. In order to produce for those companies, in order to produce what they sell to Coca-Cola system, they also need to purchase something locally produced here in the country. So in their suppliers and partners, also there is some number of employees which do exist because initially Coca-Cola has purchased something from this company. And you see, these are waves which are going outside of this company, decreasing the far it is from the Coca-Cola system, but in every wave, there is some number of employees which do exist because of Coca-Cola system. This is what is named, no, don't move further. Yeah, this is magic probably. Okay, this is what is named indirect impact, but also there is what is named induced impact or contribution to employment. Why? Because Coca-Cola's direct employees do take their salaries, go to some shops and buy, I don't know, bread, which is produced here domestically, not imported in the country. So the shop and all other suppliers who produce that bread also have some employers which do exist because that person has come, spent his or her salary and bought this bread. Also, the same situation is in all these suppliers, in Coca-Cola's case, distributors, shop, retailers, etc., supermarkets, where there are some employers which do exist because of existence of Coca-Cola and because it purchases and pays salaries to these people. So all consumer-related spendings which generate another consumer demand in economy has also some share because of this company. So altogether, all these things, direct employment, indirect employment, and induced employment constitutes total contribution of Coca-Cola system to employment. Same effect is to GDP, same effect is to labor income. Labor income means what people who are officially employed gets as their salaries and wages. And same effect is with taxes on all levels of the country. So this is how it can be calculated for each and every company, meaning what does it impact and role for economy. So I stand so long on this methodology in order to give you that concept to understand it, because the numbers itself and the figures itself, I'm sure you can easily find on websites, etc., and review in details, but this concept is very important. So moving further, I can tell how this represents the results. Yeah, next slide, please. How this represents the results in figures, in numbers. Thank you. You're so helpful today. Yeah, so saying, for example, about the contribution to GDP. So what is interesting that based on the calculations in the period of this study, the Coca-Cola system's total contribution to GDP of Kazakhstan is 0.3% of the whole GDP of the country. Again, considering these effects, it doesn't mean that the company itself generates this GDP in the country, but the whole system with all these direct and induced effects means that almost 0.5% of GDP of the country is supported by activities of the Coca-Cola system. And the total contribution of the system to GDP is a kind of a value added created by entire food and beverage industry, which is the second manufacturing sector in terms of contribution to GDP in that period. And 12% of that sector contribution is also because of Coca-Cola system. Similar effects can be seen in terms of tax contribution, in terms of jobs, etc. For example, based on calculation, more than 12,000 jobs were supported in various sectors of economy in Kazakhstan by the Coca-Cola system. And at the same time, the direct effect, so the own system's employees number is less than 1,000. So you see the effect. They have only 900 employees itself, but because of all these effects, because of all these interconnections in the economy, they support almost 12,000 jobs in the country. And further, so the methodology allows further to estimate which sectors mostly get that effect in terms of employment. I will focus on that a bit more further. Same is regarding, for example, the effect which is a bit unique for such business as Coca-Cola system, because they have also distribution network and they have also effects coming from supermarkets and retail stores. So in 2023, their activities allowed the distributors to create more than 42 billion tenge, or it is, well, by that exchange rate, it was a bit more than $90 million of added value in the economy. At the same time, again, it has been an effort to support almost 6,000 jobs just by distributors, just there by their activities. If moving, for example, further to talk a bit more about, next slide, please, to talk a bit more about, again, how this effect is constituted by its components, I would say. So as I said in the beginning, no any large company is working alone. So there are usually local purchases. And for this kind of methodology, it is very important to distinguish between consumer spendings and economic demand for those goods and services which are produced inside the country and which are imported. However, even imported goods may create some economic benefit because there are importers, they have jobs, they pay taxes, they generate some kind of added value, and this also can be accounted. In case of the Coca-Cola system, there is a specific in terms of local purchases. So there is significant portion of import. There is a concentrate. Again, there are specific, and there are local suppliers and local purchases which contributes to that effect. So if we remove the concentrate, as I said, which is unique thing, you see that more than 40% of all purchases were local. And for any company, this approach can lead to generating data and food for thought of increase of local purchasing will significantly increase these effects, especially in terms of employment, in terms of taxation, in terms of GDP. I even had example of working with this approach, which with large industrial company who produce produces different metals, and then can use this data to redirect their purchases to certain products in order to significantly increase these effects to certain sectors of economy. Same for any other company. If we will move further, I said you previously that approach, next slide please, approach allows to see which sectors in particular may get the most effect, for example, from this contribution to employment, to GDP, to tax, to labor income, etc. And for sure, we can see that food and beverage is one of the most sector. But if we will compare how this contribution to GDP puts to different sectors of economy, how it is distinguished, you see that we can even put the Coca-Cola system here among sectors of economy for a purpose of comparison to see that effect in terms of contribution to GDP. And if we will look on the left side of diagram, again, it illustrates that direct effects of any large company is only part of the total contribution and total role of economy. So the red side is the added value which is generated by the Coca-Cola system itself, but all other in the graphs in that waterfall diagrams are those indirect effects, are those effects with distributors, retails, etc. And then they together constitutes that effect, which is almost 2 times more on the whole economy. Next slide, please. And again, next slide, please. Same can be said regarding the contribution to employment. This is really interesting, I think, because when you talk with Akimats, when you talk with government officials, employment and reducing unemployment rate and keeping jobs and employment rate is very important KPI for them. So if you use this approach and you can show that, guys, you see the difference between these effects. So our own number of employees, the red side on the left, and what we support in different sectors of economy because of our activities, the right side of this diagram, you see the effects are 12 times more, almost 12 times more. And as I said previously, again, it can be broken down by certain sectors which gets more and most from these effects. Similar diagrams are in the reports with regards to other effects. So how the country benefits from different taxes and additional taxes being collected because of activity of that company. I can tell about that a bit more. So move one slide more, please, and one more, please. Yeah, this is about this is about wages and salaries. Again, the multiplier is 4.4. It means that every 1 tenge which the system is paying to its own employees supports another almost 3.5 tenge of other salaries, additional salaries in different sectors of economy because of all these activities. Similar effect can be found, similar, I mean, that the total is more than direct, can be found in terms of taxes. So next slide, please. So for every next slide, please. For every 1 tenge of taxes paid by Coca-Cola system, so the government gets almost additional 1 tenge in different tax revenues in different other sectors of economy. And this effect can be distributed also by suppliers of the Coca-Cola system, by its distributors networks, by effects from selling its products in supermarkets and retail stores, etc. But again, it is a kind of thing which can support explaining the role of a company in the economy. So if we will move, for example, to the next slide, you see that this is a kind of comparison between years, how the tax contribution grew. So it grew at average annual rate of almost 23% in comparison with the overall growth tax growth rates in the economy of 15%. So it means again that the contribution of the system in the tax collection in the country was a bit higher than annual general tax growth rate in the country. And it also can be broken down by certain sectors which get the most of these effects. So concluding on this, because as I said, there are a lot of different figures and numbers in the report. Concluding on this, I would encourage different companies to use this approach to look into their role in the economy, not only from their direct perspective, how many employees we have, how many taxes we pay as our own company, but also what kind of other effects, indirect and induced, we create in the economy because of our activities. This is a kind of a good tool to first understand where to direct our investments, but at the same time to talk with government officials, to talk to investors, etc. So this is what I wanted to tell about this report. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Victor. Thank you. And now I pass the word to Alima Isimbaeva, Director of Public Affairs and Communications from Coca-Cola Czech. Alima, please.
Thank you, Yulia. Thank you, Victor, and Ernst & Young for doing that report for us. I will not take long time. Just wanted to share like why we do that, why we are doing this report at all. So this is a second time that we are doing it in Kazakhstan. This time, as we were approaching our 30th anniversary, we decided to make 10 years economic impact study. So to understand what value we create, as Vili also mentioned, that's very important for us to understand, not just to talk, but actually to prove what we are doing. So it's not just about business. It's not just about producing beverages and selling the beverages. It's about what else do we do for our people, like our employees? What do we do for our partners, for our customers, for our consumers? And what do we do for the community? Or in a broader way, what do we do for the government? So that's why this kind of report is really helpful to, first of all, to negotiate with the government. So when you go and talk, it's more credible when you have numbers, when you actually show what do you do, not just as a like beverage production company, but as a representative of the second industry, manufacturing industry in the country. It is also very valuable when you talk about these numbers to your partners. We were also sharing this information with our distributors to show the scale of the business and to show, how impactful we are actually. It is also like it's paying back in a very positive way when we talk to our communities. Victor, we didn't have time to talk about the community part and the ecological part that is also being assessed via the study, so which showed actually what were our investments into the community project, what was our impact from our ecological projects. So that is also very well communicated and taken, by our community partners as well. And of course, it's all external communications material. So recently, we had a visit of Kazakhstan president to our plant in Shymkent, our new plant in Shymkent, and we had a chance to share these numbers with His Excellency as well. So that's very actually useful and long-term, playing material. And with this, I just wanted to also maybe offer and just to give a kind of food for thought for the EUROBAK members, Yulia, with your permission, if we could do something similar for the EUROBAK community. Because, all of us, we are all in EUROBAK in different communities, in different committees that we have. And we are all working on different issues, right? Regulatory issues, and we always have a dialogue, sometimes negotiation with the government officials. And that would be really strong if we have such numbers, uniting EUROBAK. So maybe, and then we would sound more, we would sound stronger, and we would sound, more efficient, I would say. So with this, maybe like further we can work on it. We can have a like internal further like operating discussions, let's say, within the members of the EUROBAK on how do you see that, if you would be willing to join that, to contribute to that study as well. So that's what I wanted to share and offer. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Halima, and I will echo you and invite EUROBAK members to join this initiative and through committees, or we can have a separate discussion on how this can be arranged, because as Halima mentioned, when we engage in a dialogue with the government, it is important to tell that it's not only 1,000 that Coca-Cola is employing, it is affecting 12,000 people, meaning families as well. And that makes a huge difference in how we represent our association. So if you're interested in this, please speak to us, speak to Halima after this meeting, and we can see what we can do together in order to make our letters and statements and addresses to the government of Kazakhstan even more impressive and even more weighed and heard. So this is an important initiative, and I'd like to thank Coca-Cola for bringing this to the attention of EUROBAK membership. And before we move to the answers and questions session, we have one little surprise, which I'm not even sure whether Halima will like it or not, but anyways, I'm gonna do it and take the risk. We know that just recently, Halima was awarded an outstanding achievement recently. This was called the Medal for Labor Distinction, as we translate it into English. And we are proud to celebrate this remarkable milestone with a congratulation letter from EUROBAK that we would like to now present to you. And I would like to do the honors, to ask to do the honors our Deputy Chairman, Gordon Haskins. So please join me in a round of applause, please.
Really a surprise. Thank you.
I hope you like it.
I do, of course.
Hussein, Ertan, board members, come on. This is your part.
I
where
will
you become-
if Veli also stands up.
Okay.
We feel like
Oops. Sorry.
And thank you, Halima, for all the contribution and support you've done over the years to EUROBAK. Thank you. So I think now we have the time for questions and answers. Our speakers are here, our board members are here. You're more than welcome to raise your hand. If you don't feel comfortable speaking in English, asking your question in English, we have a simultaneous interpreter there. You can proceed in Russian. Everybody has the earphones, but not the speakers, that's okay. I told them to remove it from here. But anyways, we can easily arrange. So please raise your hand, introduce yourself, tell us where you, which company you represent, and ask your questions. Just 1 second.
Maybe I'll start things off. Thank you all for the presentations today. Very interesting and insightful. And I thought, first of all, I'd pick up on Alima's point. As a member of the board of directors of EUROBAK, I would suggest that we actually discuss this initiative tomorrow at our board meeting, so we can add that to our agenda, because I think it is a very good idea. And then picking up further on that, Victor, I wonder if there's anything by way of just general extrapolation from your study that could apply to other sectors, or do you think it's company by company, sector by sector specific? Or is there something that you've learned that would show that true multiplier effect for, say, all of the EUROBAK members?
I can talk about this for a while because I have plenty of different examples of how this can be used. It can be used by the whole sectors. It can be used by association of different sectors and different companies, by certain company. I can tell you even about very interesting example here in the region. So it was a couple of years ago when Kyrgyzstan government, they wanted to introduce export duty for customs duty for gold producers there in order to push them not export just ore or concentrate of gold, but to build fabrics inside the country and process it here. But for economic reasons, it was not the case. So they wanted to use this kind of approach for the following way: to calculate where they are now, how important the role of that number of companies is for the economy, and what will be if they will push that duty and their investments and outputs will decrease. And then to go to government and say, guys, this is where we are now. If you will do that, the effect for economy will be like this. Do you still want to implement that or not? So I presented that to Prime Minister and they declined that plan. So this can be used for explanation of either implementation of new taxes, duties, increase of tariffs, etc., or vice versa, if the effect is negative, in order not to introduce them or to change the concept. It can be, well, in Georgia, we use that in order to help the company to prove some subsidies from the government to subsidize some electricity tariffs, but in the benefit for that company to construct another plant. So government will give them by this hand subsidies, but if by another hand it will receive some benefit because of increased employment, output, etc. It can be used as a communication tool to talk to Akimats about a role, about pensions, about employments on the local level, etc. So there are different examples and it can be used in different ways. What is very interesting about this approach, when I discovered it 10 years ago, it was invented in Soviet Union by a guy, Leontiev, economist, who haven't been accepted by Soviet economists. He moved to US. He has got Nobel Prize because of this approach. And now this approach is being studied by every macroeconomist in university and applied by almost every government, including our ministries and our government in Kazakhstan. So nothing is rocket science here.
Yeah, congratulations, Julie. Congratulations, CCI, Victor, for this great presentation. I just to build on the idea of making a EUROBAK, presentation or impact. Maybe we can even break it down by sectors. So, what's the impact on FMCG? What's the impact on energy and the others? Then, when we speak about sectors, it might be really impactful, if that makes sense. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have a question over there.
All right. Thanks, Ivan. Thank you very much. Look, we live in interesting times. I will tell that much in terms of the impact on climate. As EBRD, 2 years ago, we promised all of our shareholders and stakeholders that each and every project that we carry out has to be in compliance with the Paris Accord. So this means that we will not be able to do a project that does not work hand in hand with the Paris alignment, or it's not aligned to the Paris Accord, which means that most of the fossil fuel projects are basically out. We have already we have already stopped investments across coal and upstream oil, even midstream oil. We're also almost out of that as well. There is a small window of opportunity in terms of combined cycle gas turbine projects, meaning producing electricity from gas. And I'll give you one example how one of these projects are, what is that window of opportunity? First of all, the project has to tick a lot of boxes. The project has to be Paris aligned. The project has to have exceeding impact. The project has to have a lot of policy components, etc., etc. So there's going to be quite a bit of requirements for us to be able to take this project to the board. But in short, we can look at CCGT projects. And the example I would like to give is the Almaty CHP2 project. About 1.5 years ago, we financed that project that will basically replace the existing coal heat power generating capacity at Almaty CHP2, which provides 70% of the heating of Almaty and which contributes about 35% of the CO2, methane, and particle emissions of Almaty as a whole. So we can finance this kind of CCGT project, but we would not be able to take part in a massive 10, 15, 20 different CCGTs across the board. So it has to be a special project. Thanks.
Just from our perspective at Abu Dhabi Commercial Bank Group, probably a little more flexibility than EBRD. As a group, we're still part of the Net Zero Banking Alliance. We still have a strong commitment to ESG in everything that we're doing. Likewise, coal is outside of our remit now across the group. That said, we are still looking at some petrochemicals and oil and gas projects. Potentially we could be involved in gasification type projects. So perhaps a little more flexibility, but still a very strong focus on all of those ESG principles at our group.
Thank you. Emil Aliyev, Central Asian Bridge, Düsseldorf, Germany. I have a question probably to Mr. Hussein Özcan. I represent the German logistics sector. That's why the question will be about Middle Corridor. And European politicians in the last years announced big investments along the Middle Corridor. And my question is, are there already some specific projects which are already assignment signed, or the projects are already under construction, or we still speak about like a future development and potential projects? Because it's important for us, like as a logistics company, as European logistics company. In the last 3 years, we changed our routing completely to Middle Corridor, like avoiding Russia and Iran. And these investments for us is a very important indicator to understand if like all this Middle Corridor, more like a middle term and long term interesting routing, or like if it will be still as interesting and as demanded in 3-5 years as it is today, or it's more like a short-term geopolitical story? Thank you very much.
Excellent question. Thank you. Excellent question. Very direct to the point. And my answer to you is I'm hoping to be as direct and as informative as well. Number one, we have done a big study about 2 years ago, which identified the specific priority projects. I think together with World Bank also joined us later on with another study on the passage times. So if you combine those two studies, you will really understand the dynamics of the Trans-Caspian corridor. Now, a corridor is not very easy. It takes about 4 hours flight time from here to the Caspian border. It's about a couple thousand kilometers of infrastructure, additional infrastructure needs. Then you have to build the port facilities. Then you have to bring vessels to a lake. Yes, it's Caspian Sea, but it's a lake. You either have to build it on the lake or you have to bring it. You can bring it maybe through Volga-Don, but that's very narrow. See, you're understanding where I'm getting at. Then you need to build another port on the other side of Caspian. Then you need to see the railway connections are okay in the 3 countries of the Caucasus. Then you have alternatives. Either you can go down to the Mersin port of Turkey or use the Poti port or other new developing ports across Georgia. Then you can go across the Black Sea into the European markets. There are a few other alternatives as well, but this is not an easy alternative. The alternative, northern corridor, which is usually used from China, you either go through Kazakhstan, you go into Russia, and then you are into either Belarus or Poland. That was the usual route that has been used. You put it on a train, and then across the where the gauge is 15-20, across there all the way to the border of Europe, you were able to go. Creating an alternative is not very easy, and it's not very cheap either. So this study identified 44 different projects worth about $18 billion. And then this study also identified soft measures that needs to be done. For example, when you're crossing the borders, you need to have the digitalized structure so that the border crossings are done in a fast manner. You don't sit there and wait for days until they issue the papers for your goods that you're carrying. And you need to have additional warehousing, etc. Now, after explaining this clearly, there has been a lot of investment projects that has already started. One priority, Dostik to Mointi railway network. Kazakh Demirjoli is working on it right now. It's an 840 kilometers road. We are working together with Aktau Port, which is owned also by Kazakh Demirjoli, on expanding the port handling capacity. We financed on the other side ASCO, Azeris, for building new vessels. We are working with Turkey on the railway expansion from Istanbul to the border of Bulgaria. We are, as EBRD, also, together with other partners, working with the road connections as well. And our sister financial institutions are in discussions, again, with the relevant authorities on financing the Almaty bypass and the connection between Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan. That's Darbazam-Aktaral project. So there is a lot of, things that have been done. And as EBRD, we have financed 4 private sector projects already on the private sector operated railway operators in Kazakhstan. So there is a lot to be done, but there's also a lot that has been done already. So it is neither a pipe dream nor, oh yes, we are ready to have the middle corridor completely efficiently as a perfect alternative to the to the other corridors. So it's somewhere in between. It will take a little bit more time. Now to your final part of your question, is it going to be a 3-4 year, 5-year political issue? No. Economics also says, and I'm really glad you were referring to the Leontief paradox there. That was an excellent one. Economics says that the most expensive good is the one that you don't have, because the price reaches infinity at the time. having an alternative, you need to look at it exactly from this point of view. Once you have an alternative, it has a price at least. So from this point of view, I don't think this is going to be a short-term phenomena, but it's going to be a long-term phenomena. And if it will ever happen, this is the right time for it to happen, because we have been talking about it for 30 years as well, the Trans-Caspian corridor, amongst other corridors as well. I hope I answered your question. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Do we have more questions? Or we are almost perfectly in time. We have 3 minutes before we wrap up.
If nobody else has one, I'll jump in with another one for you, Hussein, because I was thinking of it as you were speaking. You referred to the OPEC plus arrangements and Kazakhstan's current status in there. I wonder if you can provide a little more insight from the BRD perspective on how much you think these dynamics are going to impact the market and the economy more generally, considering everything that's going on.
I tried to indicate that half of the exports of Kazakhstan is on the oil sector. So from that point of view, how you calculate it? You calculate it as the price of the good plus how much you're basically selling of that good. The OPEC plus agreement, when I was referring to, was the agreement between the OPEC plus countries on the amount of total production that you can have on a daily basis, monthly basis, yearly basis, etc. So which is basically, there is a limit to it. And as you know, the Tengiz oil field is coming into production quite fast, actually, and that will increase the capacity, the supply capacity of oil in Kazakhstan. And then if you have limitations on the actual production capacity as you're a part of, or as you abide by the OPEC plus arrangements, that will have an impact on the amount of production that you can have. But to be very frank, the real determinant or the real variable, the factor that will impact the amount of revenues that Kazakhstan is going to have on the oil side is going to be the price, not necessarily the amount, because the amounts are going to be more or less the same with a little bit of an increase. But calculating the price is going to be very difficult. And with this increased uncertainty, we're seeing a reduction from 75 to 65 at Brent already. And if it keeps around these levels, I think it is sustainable for Kazakhstan. The impacts would be able to be weathered and definitely can be with the other fiscal measures can definitely be alleviated. But if the price goes down even further, then it will have more impact on the actual GDP and the growth figures. Now, the final growth figures, right before our annual meeting, we will have our updated report, which is going to be actually in about a month and a half. About 3 weeks from now, our annual meeting. And I'll make sure to, once it is out, to share it with the EUROBAK members as well, the regional economic prospects as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Hussein. Do we know what number the cost of oil or the price of oil our Kazakhstan budget was drafted on for this year? Around 65. So as long as it is 65, we're all okay, right? When it goes down, then yeah.
I have a last question for Mr. Hussein. Sorry. Thank you very much for your presentation. You bring a lot of factors that could impact our economy. You said the currency impact, the market demand would be shown as a bad case scenario. From your perspective, do you believe the dollar would be increasing our currency? And do you believe that the US Treasury bonds is now given back by countries like China, Japan, and etc.? Given these conditions, would it be beneficial to our Kazakhstan economy, because you said that main economy income based on the critical raw materials and the oil consumptions by other countries. So in a percentage value, what do you think that the situation could be changed for the beneficial part for our country?
$1 million question. I wish I had the answer to that question. I would not be working anymore if I had the answer. Look, jokes aside, Kazakhstan's macro position is very comfortable from a fiscal point of view and also from a monetary policy point of view as well. The macroprudential measures that are put on ChatGPT can answer my question. So from this point of view, I don't expect personally, this is personal, because the numbers that I have given and the presentation we will share with everyone as well, says things, but from our point of view, my point of view, I don't expect a currency crisis in Kazakhstan. So the tenge devaluation, a certain devaluation is needed, in fact, because there is an inflationary difference. So on average, we have about between 10 to 15% inflation over the course of over the course of past 5-6 years, while the inflation numbers in the US is much lower. So automatically, when you have, if everything else is constant, then you need to have some sort of a devaluation, a certain trend of devaluation. And devaluations doesn't happen like that. It usually, unless it is managed, it usually happens in a more volatile manner. But some reduction in terms of the currency is healthy. In fact, it will increase the competitiveness of the economy and the exports of Kazakhstan too. Now, coming to the currency dollar, it's anyone's guess. I mean, there are scenarios that are quite scary in the sense that whether US dollar is going to be used as a main currency of trade anymore or not. What's going to happen with the if there is a big dump on the Chinese holdings of the US securities, what would happen to the currency itself? Will itself be volatile, etc. So these are all the questions I think is very difficult to predict because of the very difficult to predict administration as well, and the current geopolitical conditions are also very difficult to predict. And I think that's why it is quite important to stick to the longer term or medium to long term plans, and to be as risk averse as possible at the moment, I think. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And by this, allow us to conclude today's event. Once again, we'd like to thank our partner and sponsor, Coca-Cola Czech, for making this event possible. Thank you for coming, for being with us this morning. We do have Zoom broadcast. There were some people connecting to us online. And we were going live, I think, on LinkedIn when internet allowed. So thank you very much for this very interesting presentations and discussions. And thank you once again, Coca-Cola, for the initiative. As Gordon mentioned, we will be talking about this tomorrow at the board meeting, and hopefully we can strengthen this initiative with support of the board and take it further as an organization. So once again, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the week and the upcoming holidays. May is always the month where it starts, for me, it starts with my birthday on the 15th of May, right? Because before then, nothing can happen really. So enjoy the business season, enjoy this time of the year. And if you do have any questions, if you have any issues that are of concern to your business, please be in touch with our team. We are here to support you. We are here to address the issues with the government, joining the diplomatic community. EUROBAK exists to support our members, and this is a member-driven association. And we do have our social media team here who would like to take interviews and your impressions of what you thought of this event. You are more than welcome to come to Zauriesh and Aysulu. They will be happy to take a couple of minutes of interview, and we will be putting you on our social media. Thank you very much for your support, and all the best. Thank you.